Welcome to the podcast, Let the Prophets Speak. This is Isaiah 66, Yeshayahu chapter 66, Parak Samach Vav, the final chapter of this book of Isaiah. And this is Saul Weinreb, the host of your podcast. This chapter is a mirror image of the first chapter in Yeshayahu. This mirror imagery was pointed out by none other than the Radak, who I have drawn upon a lot throughout this podcast. For those of you that have been listening all the way through now, and you'll understand the mirror imagery in just a moment. But just to remind you, all the way back in the beginning, we had the in chapter 1, verses 11 through 13, where we had God said, "Lama li rov zivcheichem yomar Adonai." Why do I even need all of your sacrifices? Salati Ola said, I have enough of animals. I don't need you slaughtering all that stuff. I don't need all of your false prayers and false sacrifices and the temple and all this. That's not what I'm interested in. But rather, what I'm interested in is as he finished the words in verse 27, chapter 1. What do I want? God told us then, Tzion b'mishpat tipadeh v'shoveh b'tzedakah. I want tzedek and mishpat. That's what I want. Righteousness and justice. That's what I need. I want from you. God is saying the same theme here, and it's appropriate to end with the same theme and the same idea with which the book started. Ko Amar Adonai, verse 1. So says God, Hashamayim kis'i. The heaven is my throne, v'ha'aretz hadom ragloi, and my feet, and the land is a resting place for my feet. In other words, everything is mine. Everything I created, from the heavens to the earth, it's all my creation. Eze bayis asher tivnuli. What kind of house could you build for me that's even meaningful? You build me a little temple. What does that mean to me? God says. Eze makom menuchasi. What kind of a place can you make for me to rest? Like, do you really think I need a house? Do you really think that I, the creator of everything, needs a place to hang out? Yes, kol ele yodia sasa, he says in verse 2. All of these things, my hand created them. V'yiyu chol ele. And they came to be, all of this came to be because I made them. No'om Adonai, so says God. V'el ze abit. But what is it that I actually look for? What is it that I look at? I don't look for the beautiful houses you build me, the big temples, the big buildings, the big synagogues, the big things that you think you do for me. No. What do I look at? El ani uneche ruach. I look at the poor and I look at the brokenhearted, the people that are down in spirit. V'chared al dvari. And I look for those people who pay attention to my words, to my commands. That's what God says. That's what I'm interested in. That's what you can do for me. I want you to take care of my people. Period. Shochet hashor, the one who comes and slaughters an ox, makeish, is just as good as someone who kills a man. In other words, it's useless to me. Zoveach haseh, the one who slaughters a sheep, orev kelev, is just as bad as someone who cracks the back, who breaks and kills a dog. Ma'alei mincha, someone who brings a mincha, a sacrifice to me, an offering. Mincha usually means an offering from grain. Dam chazir is just as good as pouring the blood of a pig. Mazgir levona, the one who offers up levona, incense, mivarech oven, is the same thing as someone who is blessing iniquity and sin. Gam hema bacharu b'darchehem, and just as they have chosen their evil ways, just as those things I'm comparing it to have chosen to do evil things, and they wanted to go in their own disgusting paths that their souls desired. So in other words, the one who kills a person just like they chose evil thing, same thing is the Shocher Hashor, same thing is the one who thinks he can bring a sacrifice to me and somehow that's going to help. Gamani evchar betalulehem umeguro soma vilahem. The same way that they choose to mock me by bringing sacrifices to me while they themselves are not living the proper life and not treating people properly, so I will choose their in their crooked ways, and I am going to bring upon them the things that they fear the most. Because why is it that people turn to these idols and other ideologies, etc.? They turn to them because they're afraid of evil, and they do things that magical in an idea that somehow that's going to save them. Well, I'm going to make those things that they're afraid of actually happen. Karasi ve'einoneh, ya'an karasi ve'einoneh, because I have called out and no one answered. I've been trying to bring them back to me, but they did not listen. Dibarti v'lo shemeu, I spoke, they did not listen. Vayasu hara be'einai, they did evil in my eyes, they did what was evil. Uva'asher lo chafasti b'charu, and they chose to a path that I did not desire for them to take. And then God turns, Shimu dvar Adonai, listen to the word of God. Hacharedim el dvaro, those that are charedim, those that are paying attention, those that are concerned about, that care about his words. Not like the people I just said that dibarti v'lo shomeu, but the people that are charedim el dvaro, amru achechem son'echem minadechem, your brothers, the evil ones I just talked about, the ones that hate you, the ones that are push you away, are minadechem, they push you away. Leman shemi yichbar Adonai, what do they say to you? They say to you, in my name, God saying, yichbar Adonai, let's see God honor himself, v'nireh v'simchaschem, and let's see you rejoice. In other words, let's go back for just a moment to chapter 5, verse 19, this is really referring back to that, back to the beginning. Chapter 5, verse 19, we have God criticizes the people, the people that taunt those that are faithful to God and say, yeah, let's see God do his thing so that we can see, right? Let's see him do those miracles. Let's see him save you, right? Let's see him, because they refuse to stay faithful to God. God says back now to the ending words of verse 5. Those people that say that to you, they are the ones that are going to be ashamed and embarrassed. Kol sha'on me'ir. There is a voice of tumultuous, loud, awful sound coming from the city. Kol mehechal, a sound is coming from the temple. Kol Adonai, the sound of God, Mishalem Gemul Evav, who is repaying their dues to those that are his enemies, specifically chooses the Heichal, the temple itself, because that is where the people that come to pray that are insincere, the people that live an evil life and they think they're going to come save themselves. But no, that's not going to happen. So here in verse 7 through 9 comes an interesting idea, which I just wanted to mention before we read those 3 verses. The idea that God, and we had this expressed several times before in Isaiah, that in the beginning God was nice, nice in the sense that he allowed for the Jewish people to have to be redeemed from Egypt, to get the land of Israel, to build a temple and everything, right? In a time where his justice was manifest, was seen, was visible during those times, but then they rejected him nonetheless. And then God therefore said, I'm going to have to make them live through a long period of suffering and exile before they become redeemed again. Now God is going to say that again, that kind of like, unfortunately, last time when you had the temple, you didn't keep it, you didn't behave. Why? Because I allowed you to have it without going through that period of suffering. And God uses the metaphor, which again has come up many, many times throughout this book, the metaphor of the birth pains, the pains of labor that precede the delivery of a baby. And God says, back then, B'terem tachil yalada, before you even had labor, you gave birth. Remember, this is also the vision of Zion, being the mother who gave birth, which is a image which we painted many times. Before you even had labor, you gave birth. B'terem yavo cheva Allah v'himlita zachar. Before you even had the pain of the contractions of labor, you've already given birth to a son. Zion, you've given birth to your children before she came. The son is referring to the people of Israel, as we're about to see. Mishoma kazos. Who ever heard something like this? Mira aka eila. Who has ever seen anything like this? Hayuchal eretz biyom echad. That a land, a nation can be born in just a day. Imi valed goy pam echas. Can a nation be born right away in one time? Kichala kam yolda tziones bonad. In the way that Zion gave birth to her children, that she just gave birth, right? Without going through the pain. And God says, Ha'ani ashbir v'lo olid yomar Adonai. Am I going to bring on labor and not bring about birth? Because now I'm saying that because that's what you went through before, I therefore chose to make all the suffering happen, so that now when Zion gives birth, it is after the process of labor. And then God says, that's why he starts verse 9 with Ani ashbir v'lo olid. Now that I've gone through the process of the suffering, and you've went through the process of exile and pain, now am I going to not give birth? Of course I will, right? Am I the one who gives birth to things, who creates things? Am I going to hold back the womb and close it, says your God? No, I will bring you home. I will bring you back. I will reestablish the nation. Because, as he says in the next verse, Simchu es Yerushalayim v'gilu v'kol avah. Rejoice, make Jerusalem happy, and rejoice in it, all of you who love Jerusalem and what it stands for. Sisu ita masos. Rejoice with her in a happy, 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 beautiful way. All of you who have been mourning for her all of these years. Leman tinku. Again, keeping on going with that. She's just given birth to the people in order that you should now nurse from the milk, so to speak, that Zion is giving forth, and be satisfied, mishod tanchumea, from the breast of her consolation. So it's that same image. Zion gave birth to the children. She went through the pain. Now it's time to nurse the people and be a source of suvatem, of satisfaction. Leman tamotzu, in order that you can draw, like a mitzitza is to draw out. To be motzetz is to suck out from the image of an infant sucking from the mother's breast. V'sanagtem miziz kevoda, and you will rejoice in the glow of her honor. Kicho amar Adonai, because so says God, Hinenino te'elea kinahar shalom. I am going to aim towards her, towards towards Zion, like a river flowing of peace. Peace from the entire world will flow to Zion, and then that peace will flow forth from Zion to her people. Uchenachal shotef, and like a wadi that's full of water. Kevod goyim vinaktem, the honor of all the nations of the world will flow in that direction. Vinaktem, and you will then nurse from that. Altzad tinaseo, you will be carried on her side, or the way the same image that we had before, Teomana, we had the way a nursemaid carries her child, and then we continue the growth of the children and say V'al birkayim tisha'ashu, and on her lap, on her knees, you will be sha'ashuim is tisha'ashu is a language that's hard to translate in English. The best I saw was dandled upon. It's not a word that we use that much today, but it's you will sit on your mother's lap and she will play with you as you grow into toddlerhood and so on. Ki'ish asher imo tenachamenu, like a man whose mother comforts him. So now we're talking, you've grown up even more, where a man enjoys the comfort of the relationship with his mother. So similarly, I will comfort you over Yerushalayim to Nuchamu. And where will this happen? You will find this comfort in Jerusalem. And you will see this a redemption come, and your hearts will be happy. And your bones shall flourish and grow like grass. And the hand of God will be revealed for his servants. And he will, but his anger will be directed towards his enemies. Again, because God comes in fire, and his chariots, in other words, his armies, come like a sufa, like a sar of a sufa, like a tornado, or a I forget the word, the equivalent of a tornado over the water. Lahashiv b'chema apo, to vent his anger with vengeance. And his scream, or his roar, with flames of fire. Because God, this wonderful time we're talking about also includes the punishment of the wicked. Kiva eish Adonai minishpat, because God will mete out his justice in fire with a charbo, and with his sword as kol basar, against all of humankind. V'rabu chalei Adonai, and many there will be many deaths that are killed by God when it comes time for the ultimate justice. And who are these people that are going to be the recipients of God's wrath and vengeance? Those are the hamiskadshim v'hamitaharim elaganos. Those are the ones who make themselves holy and pure in order to go and serve the various idols and ideologies and everything that led them away from the ultimate message, which was what he started this chapter with, taking care of the poor and taking care of the brokenhearted. Achar achat batovech, and they go to their gardens after the one in the middle of the circle. So most of the commentaries here assume that this means in the garden there's a tree, the Asherah tree, which people worship, and people stand around it in a circle. I like better this translation that I see on Sefaria.org, where it means achar, they go to imitate the one in the middle of the circle. It portrays an image of a person, leading a band of scoffers and jokers, and they go to the gardens and they get themselves dressed up and everything in order to sit around and listen to someone standing on a soapbox, so to speak, professing all kinds of blasphemous and idolatrous, or possibly promiscuous ideologies, because the image of promiscuity is also have been used in similar ways and throughout this book. Ochlei b'sar chazir, and then they go and they eat the flesh of pigs, v'hashekets, and disgusting things, v'yachbar, and they eat mice. Yachtav yasufu nu'om Adonai. All of those people will end up in death. Those people that gather around to do those things. V'anochi, verse 18, ma'aseim u'machshavoseim, and I know their ways and I know their plans. So therefore, ba'ah, the time has come. L'kabetz eskol hagoyim, to gather all of the nations, v'alashonos, and all of the languages of the world. Uva'u v'ra'u es kvodi. It is time for all of them to come to Jerusalem and see my honor. The time has finally come to gather everyone, all the nations. And God is going to be very clear here, because he's spoken so much of Israel and the people of Israel, but now he speaks of the entire world. He's going to be very clear. What is the role of Israel, and what is the role of all of the nations? How does this work? And this is again repeated, as has been repeated numerous times throughout this book, but God makes it very clear near the end of this book. V'samtivohem os, I shall set a sign among them, among all of those nations. V'shilachti mehem, and I will send from them this, from the the people of Israel, Piletim, refugees, or actually Piletim here would be better translated as survivors, those that aren't going to get punished, the good ones, I'm going to send some of them El Hagoyim all the way out to all of those nations. And then he lists all these faraway nations: Tarshish, Pul, Velud, Moshche Keshesh, the ones that shoot bows and arrows, Tuval, Yavan, out to the distant places, Tuval and Yavan, Ha'iyim Arachokim, the faraway places. Remember, we had this language numerous times over and over again when God referred to the faraway nations of whom we don't even know of yet. The ones that in the time of Yeshayahu, they're way out there beyond the seas, that we don't even know. We're going to send people of the Jewish people there. Asher lo shamu, these nations that have never heard Hashemi, they didn't hear of me, v'lo ra'u es kavodi, they never had a chance to see my honor. And I'm going to send messengers from the Jews, v'higidu et kavodi b'goyim, in order that they can tell those nations about my honor. V'heviu et kol achechem, and then they will bring all of your brothers, mikol hagoyim, from all of these nations, minchal Adonai, they will all bring a offering to God. Basusim, they will bring it on horses, uvarechev, and on riders, uvatzabim, and on a type of horse, uvapradim, and on mules, uvakir karos, and it's a type of camel. Al Har Kodshi, all towards my holy mountain, Yerushalayim, Jerusalem. Omar Adonai, so says God, Kasher Yaviu b'nei Yisrael, just like the people of Israel bring es hamincha, their sacrifices, b'chli tahar, in pure vessels, beis Adonai, to the house of God. V'gam mehem, and also from them. Now, ekach lakohanim lalviim, Amar Adonai, I will take from them also people to be priests and to be Levites. So says God. And that I will take them from the nations as well. There are various. Some of the commentaries say that Gamehem means from those refugees, but it doesn't really make sense, being that those refugees are of the Jewish people and there are priests among them. Rashi actually says that Gamehem means, like I translated it, which means from those nations I will take Kohanim and Leviim. So not only will they all be together, but I will even make some of them into priests. Ki ka'asher hashamayim hachadashim, just like the new heaven, via Oretz Achadasha, like God promised us in last chapter, and the new land, Asher Ani said that I am making, Omdim Lefanai, they will all be standing in front of me, Noam Adonai. So says God, Ken Ya'amod Zarachem V'Shemchem, so shall your children and your name and reputation stand. The reputation and the name of the people of Israel will not stand on being apart from the other nations, but it will stand on the fact that they are the ones that brought all of the other nations to Jerusalem and brought everyone together. So you will remain special, but special because you accomplished your mission of bringing everyone together. And it will be every month on the new moon, umidei Shabbat b'Shabbato, and every Shabbat, every Sabbath on its week, yavo chol basar, all of the flesh will all come. And then, now specifically, just like in the last chapter, God specifically mentioned that it would not be just human beings that enjoy the peace, but it will be animals that enjoy the peace as well. I feel that this language of Yavo Chol Basar is coming to say, as we started with the Jewish people and then included all the nations of the world, now God is including all Basar, all living beings. L'hishtachavos l'fonai amar Adonai, will all come to bow before me, says God, in a time when one would imagine that no longer am I interested in the sacrifices and so on. And it's specifically stated that they're going to bring a mincha. They're going to bring a mincha, which is a sacrifice that was back in verse 20, a sacrifice out of grain and crops. V'yatzu v'ra'u, and they will all go out and see b'figrei anashim, all of those people that were killed and died, their corpses, the ones that were punished, the one haposhim be, the ones that rebelled against me. Kitolatam lo tamus, their worms will never die. Isham lo tichbeh, and their fire, the fire that I sent to burn them, will never go away. And they shall be a something that humankind, people will always look at and see what happened to those that didn't do what God wanted. And as is the custom when we read this in synagogue, in order to not end with this horrible image, we repeat the verse 23, and it will be V'hayamidei chodesh b'chodsho, on every month, Midei Shabbat b'Shabbato, and on every week on Shabbos. Yavo Chabasar, all of living flesh will come, L'shtachvot lefanai, to bow before me, Amar Adonai, so says God. Thank you so much for listening to chapter 66. Looking forward to studying future books together. Pay attention to the next book that we study together. I'm very happy that we now completed all 66 chapters of Isaiah, and please feel free to comment online if you have any comments or questions, and have a wonderful, wonderful day, and may we all merit to see these wonderful times that Isaiah was prophesizing about here.